and welcome to Week 3 of From the Top Rope presented by Barstool Sports. I am your host, Robbie Fox. With me is my co-host, Jared Carrabis, and we have a stacked show for you today. We got two guests for the first time ever. Rocky Romero is going to be on the show promoting New Japan and USA, which takes place this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Joey Ryan's on. He was on Netflix's Glow, which is now the biggest show in the country. It's crazy. Jared, you're not much of a TV guy, but I'm sure you heard about Glow.
I've heard about it because you told me about it. I honestly think that I didn't realize how weird I was until I started working at Barstool and realized that it's just like not normal to only really consume baseball and wrestling. But yeah, I think it's poor timing because I like to get into, like, I watch Stranger Things, but I did that in the off season. So the baseball off season is kind of where I cram all my pop culture and TV stuff in. But because it came out during baseball season, I wasn't going to watch it.
I'm a big Stranger Things guy. I didn't know that you were a Stranger Things guy. Very excited for season 2.
Yes, very excited.
We will get into the wrestling real quick. Make sure you rate and review this show. That helps us the most on iTunes. 5 stars, 6 stars, 6.25 stars, whatever you want to give it. Leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter. We're at From the Top. Follow us on Instagram. We're at From the Top. On both of those, whatever other plugs, I'm Robbie Barstool on Twitter. Jared's Jared_Carrabis. He does a lot of baseball tweets with wrestling GIFs. I saw that was, really popping the boys. Now, getting into wrestling this week, I had a huge night last Friday when I came kind of to your neck of the woods. Is Lowell close to you?
Yeah, it's 10 minutes from me.
Okay. I was nervous on the train ride down. I came down for Ring of Honor Best in the World, the pay-per-view, Cody Rhodes versus Christopher Daniels, which we talked about on episode 1. I was nervous. I was on the train ride down. People were like, where are you going? I said, Lowell, Massachusetts. And they were like, oh, you got to stay out of Lowell, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Everyone was telling me.
It depends on the area.
I literally got like 4 different people tell me like, be careful, loose needles everywhere. I was like, what the fuck? Like, where am I going into? The place honestly wasn't that bad. Like, the area I was in, at least, wasn't that bad.
Where was it? The Songus Arena?
It was where Shawn Michaels lost his smile. It was like the Memorial Auditorium. It was right by the hospital. The Lowell Hospital. It was literally a walk away from the hospital.
There's some rough areas. There's some not so bad areas. That one's a not so bad area. But there's no good areas.
Yeah, I mean it didn't seem horrible. So I went down there. It was a wild night because it's a 4-hour train from New York to Boston and I trained down, went to the venue, met up with Cody, met up with Brandy, who I haven't seen in a while. We hung out for a while, and then it was time for the show. So me, Brandy, and Cody's agent, Brian, went up to the rafters, and I was kind of marking out because I was like, fucking Shawn Michaels lost his smile here. This is unbelievable. And they put on a hell of a pay-per-view. Like, every match on the show was really good, and then it was main evented by Cody versus Christopher Daniels. Cody was one of the most over people I've ever seen. It was like Punk in Chicago. It was, like, shocking. Because we thought he was going to get booed. He's the heel in Ring of Honor right now, saying, fuck Ring of Honor, I'm a free agent, fuck this company. I'm going to win their title and defend it elsewhere. And Christopher Daniels is kind of the, hey, I built this company, don't fucking disrespect it. Cody was massively over. Stoolies were sniping me because I was wearing my suit. They were sniping me in the crowd all night. Like, oh, look, fucking Robbie Rhodes in his suit. Hell of a match to main event it. Even the co-main event was War Machine versus the Young Bucks versus best friends, Trent and Chuck Taylor. That was insane. That was just Dive City. But the main event was, like, really good. It felt like, and this isn't, like, a knock on either of them, it felt like a WWE pay-per-view main event. Like,
in what sense?
In the sense that they weren't doing these ridiculous indie spots. They weren't doing apron bumps. It was just a lot of, like, really good storytelling between two, like, veteran workers. And the crowd was just so fucking into it. Like, every step of the way, the crowd was into it. Daniels kicked out of a crossroads, and the crowd for sure thought he was going to win at that point. And, like, you heard, like, the groan of, like, oh, no, Cody's going to fucking lose. And then when he won, the pop was insane. He cut a great promo. We went backstage right after, and he, it was the second time I've seen a Ring of Honor title change live, which I never thought I would see, like, growing up because, I don't know, it just seemed, like, out of grasp. And it might be silly to some people, but that's like a huge deal. A Ring of Honor title change, even in
Mhm.
2017 when they're not what they used to be. But seeing Cody, one of my friends, win was crazy, and we went backstage. He gave an awesome speech to the locker room, to all the boys, and then we headed to the hospital because Cody busted his lip in like the first 2 seconds of the match on a collar and elbow tie-up.
Wait, so hold on, time out. Because we know I know where the story goes from here. But for those that are listening, they're probably going to want to know some details. Like what type of things was he saying to the guys in the locker room after?
He was basically saying, you know, I'm a free agent. Yes, our whole storyline is that I'm a free agent, but in real life, like, he is a free agent in real life, but he's basically saying, like, this is kind of my home. Like, I'm really fucking proud to be Ring of Honor champion. This means a lot to me. It's the first time in 31 years that someone in the Rhodes family held a world championship, and it was the first time that Cody ever held, like, a legitimate world championship. So he kind of talked about how much it meant to him, and then he closed it out. It was his wife Brandy's birthday, and he's like, you know, at the Performance Center, they always tell us to finish strong, and I was always not good at that. So I'm going to continue to be not good at that and just ask the boys to sing happy birthday to my wife. So that was a really funny moment. And, you know, he had to get 5 stitches in his lip, which we didn't expect. We expected, all right, let's go after party. He thought about super gluing his lip together at one point. We were like, Cody, buddy, you got to go get stitches. So we brought him to the hospital. And we brought the fucking strap. We brought the Ring of Honor world title to the hospital. We walked in. We were the only ones in the whole hospital. There's an old lady behind the reception desk, and she's like, did you win that? And he's like, yeah. She's like, congratulations. I see that. I assume this is the reason you're in here. He's like, yeah. She's like, I thought wrestling was fake. He's like, you know, accidents happen. And it really was like a complete and total accident. It was like, I think it was a collar and elbow tie-up, where he got headbutted. Like, they both ducked their heads at the same time. Yeah. Doctor was really funny. Doctor came out and he was like, Cody, when was the last time you had your tetanus shot? And he's like, I really don't know. And he's like, all right, well, the thing with tetanus is it could, like, pretty brutally kill you, so we might want to. Cody was like, okay, yeah. I was like, fucking let's get a round of shots. Like, yeah. If this is going to brutally kill us, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're on the road all the time, it's not like you're going to get checkups. Like, where is your primary doctor? Like,
yeah,
you're just on the road all the time.
Pretty much, especially if you're not with the WWE, where if you're with WWE, you know, they have Dr. A-Man or Dr. Sampson. Who, yeah. I think Dr. Sampson actually got fired. But, you know, you're pretty much only going to the hospital if you get hurt.
Straight up handing out Z-Packs over there.
Yeah. So I don't know how the stitches held up the next night. I know he had to work the next night. In Lowell against Daniels again, I'm pretty sure. But I texted him and I was like, did they hold up? And he's like, no. So I don't know how bad that was. But I think he wore the protective mask too, like the undashing Cody mask.
The nose shield?
Yeah, because he travels everywhere with that. He's like, just in case, you never know when it would be like an appropriate time to use it. Right. But it was a really cool night. It was a really cool moment for Cody. And it was like when he threw me the keys to the car and he's like, go get the title so we can take pictures. And I just had a moment where I was walking into the hospital holding the Ring of Honor World Championship. And I was like, what the fuck is... I was like, literally a year ago to that day was my high school graduation. And yeah. I was like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is, you know, obviously, like when I had you on Section 10, I asked, like, what is your number one I made it moment? And you talked about being at WrestleMania, being paid to be there, like that was your job to not just like be there, but to cover it. So where does this moment rank for you, where you're just sitting in the emergency room with Cody Rhodes and with the Ring of Honor Heavyweight Championship?
It fucking ranks high, dude. It's crazy. It's like I talked last week about Daniel Bryan being my favorite of all time. And it's like his run with the Ring of Honor Championship lasted 462 days. And that was like as good as anything he's ever done. And it wasn't that same title. You know, they've changed the design since then, but it's still that lineage to me. And I'm like, fucking Daniel Bryan held this thing. Like, Daniel fucking Bryan held this thing. And now it's in my lap. And my friend Cody Rhodes is now the champion as he's getting stitched up. And we're like fucking around with a doctor. It was crazy. And then the thing about that was I pocket dialed you at like 3 a.m. that night.
Yeah.
And that was... I figured that Boston South Station was open 24/7.
Yeah.
So I booked a 6 a.m. train out of there, and Lowell's like an hour away from that.
Kind of, yeah.
So I took an Uber back, and I get there at 3, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're not open till 5." I was like, "What the fuck am I supposed to do?" So I started like dicking around on my phone, accidentally pocket dialed you, and then I just walked into a hotel, like the nearest hotel, and I was like, "Can I just chill in the lobby till 5?" I was like, "I won't like cause a ruckus or fall asleep or anything." Guy was like, yeah, but you got to get out of here at 5." So I was like, "Okay, that's fine."
Yeah.
Hopped on a train back, and then that night I went to Madison Square Garden and covered Bellator, which not a lot of sleep in the past week, but a lot of fun.
You'd write an interesting book someday, I feel like.
Yeah, probably an interesting book. But we sign a lot of non-disclosure agreements here, so
This is also true.
I don't know how much I could, really talk about. Talking about WWE this week, moving along, Raw and SmackDown, both pretty good shows again.
Yeah, I was very drawn in, and I feel like that usually there's always a lull after WrestleMania. So we were in that lull period for a while, but I would say, and I know this isn't really, I don't know, just Jinder Mahal's. I guess the surprise of it was, I don't think that was a high point, but it was definitely a turning point where it was like, okay, like I'm interested, I'm drawn in.
Something's happening.
Yeah, like at least it's something new. It's not just like The Miz going back and forth with the Intercontinental title. But yeah, a lot of things happening on Raw this week. A lot of things happening on SmackDown. Where do you want to start?
I want to start with Raw. I thought Raw was the better show again, and SmackDown wasn't bad, but just Raw kept me interested for 3 hours, and that's very hard to do in 3 hours.
Wait, hold on 1 second. When you sent me the topics for this particular show, you left off one of the topics that I wanted to talk about. I just realized this now after you mentioned that Raw was a good show. And I texted you, and you didn't even say anything back to it about Enzo and Cass.
I did forget to text you back. Well, here's the thing. With Raw, I was very interested, but I was also like trying to edit shit, and I was like, so when you texted me that, I was like, I meant to respond. I didn't. That's on me. I pulled a little Trent, our coworker Trent, has pretty much never responded to a text message in his life.
Yeah. Glad that's not just me.
Let's start it off with Braun and Roman, though, because they kicked the show off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk about this for a while. I don't want to, stay on this. I just want to say that Braun Strowman is a monster among men, and he is the fucking man. He is a must-watch wrestler. Everything this fucking guy does, I love. He just came out. The ambulance comes out while Roman's cutting a promo. He checks it. He gets all spooked out. And then Braun Strowman throws this 265-pound man 12,000 feet across the arena into an ambulance and screams his name.
Yep.
This fucking guy.
Hold on, let me ask you
a
question. When he debuted wearing like the black sheep mask, did you think that this is just like, oh, Vince just saw a big, tall, muscular guy and he's not actually going to be a good
I thought he was green as baby shit. I thought he was horrendous. I thought, honestly, his run in the Wyatt family was not good. I wasn't a fan of him until he started beating up jobbers after the brand split.
Yeah. Well, even that, like, I still wasn't impressed because it's like...
No, I wasn't either. But, like, eventually it got to the point where I was like, I kind of like him throwing around these scrawny dudes.
Yeah, but the squash match thing, it just reminded me too much of Ryback.
Yeah.
And, like, when they just, fed him a bunch of jobbers, whoever was in town that night, and it's like, all right, like, when is he going to get some real competition? And it's like, when you have Braun Strowman out there, it's like, this guy actually has some potential. Like, I think that he could put on a match that... he's not going to be gassed after 5 minutes. So I was like, when is that going to happen? So now I think we're finally, it's been what, almost 2 years since his in-ring debut?
Yeah, it's been like 2 years, and this guy's fucking awesome.
So he's just now getting to a point where it's like they've been building up to this point where he's actually facing someone that could potentially beat him.
And if he's able to stay healthy, he's had one injury in his career already, and, when you're that size, it can be hard to stay healthy with injuries and whatnot. If he's able to, and if he stays on this path, he could be the best big man of all time. Like, he could, like, his run right now is like the Giant in WCW. But he's booked better, which is nice.
Yeah. But the other thing about him is that with the Big Show, like the Big Show when he was in WCW, he was just like, it was squash matches. Like, he wasn't like he's obviously one of the best big men of all time, but I feel like Braun is capable of doing things that just regular sized guys can do.
Yeah,
like, I feel like Big Show is limited.
which Big Show
Yes.
did like once with ropes assisted. Braun could fucking do a kip up, which is like
Yes.
insane. And his matches with Roman have been awesome. All of his matches with Roman are great.
Yeah.
Like this guy, man, I fucking love this guy. We got to get Braun on the podcast.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
I know that he's read some of my blogs before about him when I'm just gushing over him because I got a message relayed to me that said Braun thanks you for always putting him over. And I was like, oh shit, Braun
Yeah.
Strowman.
I met him one time.
We almost
and
have to get him like in the office though, so he could throw me across the whole office.
Yes, like
Into, like, a
it's-
foam
so
pit.
you obviously realize how fucking huge he is on TV, but if you meet the guy, like the top of my head basically went to his nipples.
Yeah, I saw him. I was like second row for a Raw recently before WrestleMania, and he was in the main event. And I mean, the dude is a monster.
Yes,
He's a real
like
monster.
a literal monster.
A real monster. So we could talk Joe and Brock real quick because that's quick. It was just Brock Lesnar made his entrance and Samoa Joe hit him with the coquina clutch, choked him out, and Brock was kind of fighting back for a while, and then he got pulled off. This feud's great. Everything they've done in this feud has been done correctly, except for when they have to say "Great Balls of Fire" in promos. I noticed in somebody's promo, it might have been in this feud, it might have been in a different one. They were like, "And at the pay-per-view." And
Bray
I was
Wyatt.
Like, oh, it was Bray Wyatt. Yeah. He was
Yeah,
like, at the
I noticed
pay-per-view,
that
and I
too.
was like, Bray's using his head there. Little guy pointing to his head meme.
He said the date.
It's smart.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
smart.
I
Stay
caught
away
that.
from that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't-
he didn't
don't
say
say
the name of the
Great Balls of
pay-per-view. So like basically this fucking pay-per-view is like a sore throat. It's like I know that it's here. It's just, I just can't wait for it to go away because it's just irritating that, you know, you like I love the build up to big matches, and every single time that I have to hear someone in a serious tone say the name of the pay-per-view, it just takes away from it so much. And I'm so glad that Bray Wyatt has stayed away from it because like for his character to say it would be like you have to laugh every single time, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, like, I want to take this seriously, but I can't.
Yeah. It's brutal. It embarrasses me that it's on my birthday, too, July 9th. I'm like, God damn. It embarrasses me that I started ironically saying, goodness gracious, great balls of fire about things. And then I say it in front of people that don't watch wrestling, and they're like, what the did you just quote a song from the 60s?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, fuck, I did.
Mm.
The beatdown is good, though. Everything about the the Joe and Brock feud is really good. The biggest thing that happened on Raw, social media-wise, was LeVar Ball. And
Wait, hold on. I have one quick point about.
Yeah.
So obviously you mentioned Joe coming up from behind on Brock Lesnar and choking him out. As Brock Lesnar was on the ground, just like laid out, I was trying to think of it like from like a psychological aspect of, you know, you had the Roman and Lesnar match at WrestleMania, and I'm watching Lesnar on the ground here, and because I remember after they have the Lesnar and Roman feud, at that point, you kind of ask yourself the question, all right, you put the title back on Lesnar because, you know, he takes it away from Goldberg. Who in the company could do something like that to Lesnar?
Like lay him out like that?
Yeah. So like that's why it's
Yeah.
like, you know, I didn't really think of it until now, but like Joe is really the only guy that's just like you know, built as this like psycho that can do something like that to Brock Lesnar, because they had built him up so much that there was no one else on the roster that could actually challenge him, and you could feel like,
Except
oh,
like
this person,
maybe Braun.
maybe Braun.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's
That's
pretty much it. Joe, like I was a little underwhelmed with his NXT run, if we're being honest. He had some good matches, but I was mostly underwhelmed. His main roster run so far has been really good. I didn't love the Seth Rollins matches, but you know, I'm not a big Seth Rollins guy.
Yeah.
Everything his promos have been really good. He's never been like this phenomenal Paul Heyman type promo guy. Every time he sneaks up on Paul Heyman though, and like teases putting him in the choke, and Paul Heyman's like, "I'm just an advocate. I'm just an advocate." I like that a lot. The LeVar Ball stuff. So is LeVar's the dad, right? Or is that Lonzo?
I think LeVar is the dad.
Okay. I think so too. I didn't really know about this guy before Raw. Like, I know that we've blogged him and stuff. I don't know how I haven't known about him. I've just stayed away somehow.
Yeah.
Kind of no interest. I've heard some people say, oh, yeah, this guy's kind of a WWE character. this, that. I know people don't really like him. This guy was fucking great. I love this guy.
You think so?
Yeah, this guy made me laugh so hard. So he comes out and I'm like, oh boy, what is this gonna be? Because celebrities on Raw, it goes wrong more often than not. The celebrity guest host era of Raw. I don't know if you were watching at that time.
Yeah.
There's never been a worse era of wrestling ever.
Like Snooki.
Yeah. She actually did a crazy flip at WrestleMania though. People forget that.
People forget that.
This guy, his music hits, he comes out in the big baller brand and he swims to the ring. He literally like does this thing with his hands where he swims to the ring and left his son in the dust. Like we talked about it on the rundown yesterday. Left his son in the dust. His son, both of them, have the two most punchable, hateable faces I've ever seen in my entire life. They have these douchebag haircuts too.
Yep.
This guy just starts cutting promos on The Miz. Starts taking his shirt off, like doing karate poses. Dean Ambrose is coming out in a big baller brand shirt. His youngest son starts saying the N-word. They have to cut the segment short. Vince and Kevin Dunn were apparently losing it backstage because, like, this kid is screaming the N-word into the mic over and over again.
Yep.
It was a shit show, but I talked to my friend about this. This felt like it was organic, at least. It felt like it was natural. It felt like it was off the cuff. And the company's so scripted, everything in the company's so scripted right now that it was kind of refreshing. Like, I don't know what anyone's going to say in this.
I feel like they definitely approached him. I mean, they had to know what they were getting into here. I mean, they got what they asked for. Like, if you get into bed with these guys, you know what you're signing up for. That you know that they're loose cannons, or at least the father is. It just felt to me like there was probably a conversation backstage with The Miz where he's just like, just let me have it. You know, like we'll go from there. Just lay into me, dig into me. Like we don't have to script this whole thing out and just go for it. And he went for it. He most certainly went for it.
And I put it on Twitter. I said, is the general consensus that everyone loves this dad and hates the kids? Because that's how I feel. And I haven't really seen the kids, but I just hate him. I'll challenge him to the octagon any day of the week. Both of them at the same time. Triple threat match. Apparently that's not the case. Apparently everyone hates the dad and feels bad for the kids.
Correct.
That's the difference between a wrestling fan and a non-wrestling fan right there. You got to appreciate a good heel when you see one.
Yeah.
He's a fucking great heel.
He is, but I don't know. I mean, like you said, I didn't like the guest era, and I don't like when people just like show up and make a mockery of it. Like, and I felt like that's kind of what they were doing. I mean, they're obviously they're not wrestling fans; they're attention fans.
Yeah.
So they're not going to turn down the opportunity to show up in L.A. and have like introduce his son to L.A. and then I don't know. I'm sure that they're diehard wrestling fans are like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I was having fun with it.
I understand the mainstream appeal to it, and obviously it got a lot of. I mean, I'm sure there was a huge
mainstream appeal.
Bump,
our Twitter numbers were popping.
Yeah,
they were popping.
In that sense, I get why you do it. It's just I watch it and I'm like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan.
I didn't hate it. The other thing that you want us to talk about that you texted me about that I didn't, just totally ghosted you on, new phone, who dis? Enzo and Cass. This segment was very interesting. And this segment,
like, what the fuck? Like,
so Enzo came out and he said, Cass, get out here. Cass came out to pretty much the same theme. They just cut off the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And they both had their own Titantrons and all that. And Enzo owned up to everything. And he was like, listen, I'm really sorry. Everything you said was true. I run my mouth too much. I lose too much. I'm dragging us down. We got to change this. We can't let this ruin our friendship. We've been friends for how many years now? And you never see that in wrestling, ever. You never see anyone legitimately apologize and own up to their faults. So I was like, oh, shit, wow, this is like a good direction to take this character because I now like this character more than I did before.
Yep.
Cass then accepts his apology and says, of course I wouldn't let this ruin our friendship. And they make up and they hug and they shake hands. And the crowd had no fucking idea how to react. The crowd was like kind of booing at first. And then they were like, I think Enzo and Cass are back together. And at this point, by the time they leave the ring, I was like, oh, fuck, WWE like realizes that they shouldn't have broken them up and they're going to just put them back together. And I wasn't like, okay, good. I was like, oh, fuck, that's going to damage them more than anything. if they just put him back together and pretend like this thing never happened for that one moment last week.
Yeah.
And then Cass clotheslined the fucking head off Enzo at the top of the ramp, picked him up like Bubba Ray used to pick up Spike, and threw him not into the crowd where he was caught by fans, side first onto the LED entrance ramp. Why would you ever take that bump? That's just a ridiculous bump to take. I was like, oh, fuck, dude. You don't have to do that. The clothesline is enough.
Yeah, it sold the story, though. I mean, he was throwing him away like trash.
Yeah,
and,
it did.
I mean, I was watching it. I mean, obviously, it's wrestling, so you're skeptical the whole time. But I really did think for a quick second, I was like, they realized that they made a mistake here.
Me too, man. They let it go on for so long.
Yeah, it's more so that, they might have been like, oh shit, like they're one of our top merch sellers. Like, what's gonna happen now there? And like we gotta, and it's also just it would have been different because like when else in the history of ever have we seen a popular tag team break up one week, get a huge reaction? And then, I mean, that's what happens in real life sometimes. Like, sometimes you get in a fight, you break up, you talk it out, and you get back together. Like, that's believable. Like, that can happen. And it's never happened before in wrestling. So I was like, are they trying to take this kind of realistic approach here? Because in order to fake the wrestling audience, it's like you have to sort of set examples sometimes. I mean, if you want to do like a big twist, like when Triple H turned on Shawn Michaels when they tried to get DX back together, I think it was like 2002.
Yep.
You have to sort of set the precedent of, well, remember that time Enzo and Cass got back together? Like they can turn on each other, but they can talk it out the next week. So I was definitely drawn in, but still skeptical that, okay, when is he gonna, like when they hugged, I was like, okay, when is he gonna kick his fucking head off again? And then he didn't, and then they started walking up the ramp, and I'm just like, I'm staring at my screen, I'm like, they're really gonna fucking put them back together. Like they're really gonna do this. And then obviously he clotheslines his head off, and I'm like, oh god, like come on, like just because I'm a huge fan of Enzo and Cass.
Me too.
Look forward to it every single week. I don't even care about the matches. I just love the entrance. I love to do it.
They're both of them big Saturdays are for the boys guys. They're tagging it on Twitter all the time.
Yep.
And now it's like I feel like we got to pick sides, and I think I'm picking Enzo.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love it. I don't. Obviously, at some point they were going to split them up, and Cass was going to go on a big singles run. I still don't really know what's going to become of Enzo, but I mean, are these two going to feud with each other? Like, are they going to have like a payoff type match, or is it just going to be Enzo's going to crawl away with his tail between his legs, like, and then Cass goes on this big monster singles run? Like, I don't know. Like, does a win over Enzo do anything for Cass to launch his singles career? No, of course not.
No, I think how would you book it if we do it here? I would almost hold off the one-on-one match until SummerSlam, and I would only do one match, which WWE doesn't like to do. They like to do let's do this match 3 or 4 times in a row at pay-per-views. Hold it off until SummerSlam, make it a real grudge match. This could like co-main event the night. Make it a street fight. Have Enzo go over with the use of weapons and gimmicks and smoke and mirrors so Cass can still be strong, and somehow put Cass on SmackDown. That way he's with Carmella, who he's dating in real life, and they could travel together, because that's very strange that they broke them up in the first place. With Paige and Del Rio, it made sense. With those two, it was like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And then, have Enzo go on a good singles run on Raw, have Cass go on a good singles run on SmackDown, give it a few years and put them back together. People are constantly like, get the Shield back together, get the Shield back together. And I think that's a horrible idea, long term at least. These guys, I'm like, all right, it's been a week, let's put them back together.
Yeah, and like we made the comparison last week. I thought the New Age Outlaws was the perfect comparison because
it is.
Everyone knows their routine, and they were a great act together. They put on entertaining matches together. Their singles runs, I mean, like what did Billy Gunn won the Intercontinental title. I think Road Dogg won the Hardcore title. Maybe like the European title, I want to say.
One of them won the European title.
I think it was Road Dogg. But yeah, I think it's just, obviously they see something in Cass, and maybe, being a man, because I would fucking hate if Enzo ends up in the cruiserweight division. I hate the cruiserweights. That I don't like the division at all. I don't think that adding Enzo to it,
I think adding Enzo could give it some life. If you're trying to hype people up about that, hey, stay for 205 Live after SmackDown, and it's like, oh, we'll stay for Enzo's entrance.
But
the crowd will get into that instead of sitting on their hands.
But there's a reason why 205 Live is a separate entity from SmackDown and Raw. It's because it's just not on the same level. And it's like you could be into that. You could be into the cruiserweights and think that that's entertaining. If that's your cup of tea, suit yourself. But I think that if Cass goes on to have this monster push and then Enzo ends up in the cruiserweight division, it's just like, you're burying Enzo. You're putting him in the cruiserweight division. Like it's clear, the ropes are a different color. Like the company is telling you that this is not the same thing as SmackDown and Raw.
I have such mixed feelings about the cruiserweight division in regards to putting Enzo in it, because I feel like putting Enzo in that division could give the division life, but at the same time, it could suck the life out of Enzo, and I wouldn't want that to happen.
It's like a demotion. It's like sending him down to the minor leagues, and I don't think
it kind of is. And like I would rather him go to NXT again than go to the cruiserweight division.
Yeah, just saying a lot.
On SmackDown, wasn't as eventful. It was a good show. It just not as much going on in the 2 hours. Biggest thing was we got our women's Money in the Bank rematch, main eventing the show.
We did.
I hate to say it, I enjoyed the first match. We talked about the first match on the Money in the Bank recap show.
Mm-hmm.
This match, I did not enjoy. Like, almost none of it.
Are we both in agreement here that having the second match was basically a response to the internet saying that it ruined a great moment for what should have been, a monumental moment in women's wrestling history?
1,000%.
Like going into it,
it's a direct response.
Like they had no plans to have this second match, right? Nope. Going into it,
there's no chance.
Okay,
I think it had to be the thing. The only spot in this match that I actually enjoyed was when they teased James Ellsworth doing it again, and Carmella just sitting at the bottom of the ladder, like, yeah, give me the briefcase, like throw it down. Yeah, I liked that spot, but then they kind of ruined that spot again when Becky came in and teased tipping it from one side and then decided to go to the other side. Ellsworth actually crotched himself on the ropes pretty good, but just everything in this match I felt like was either fucked up and botched, or the stuff that wasn't was just slow, and it felt like a lot of plotting, a lot of, all right, we're gonna group up and let's wait around to catch this person that's about to dive on us. Tamina is one of the worst workers in WWE history. Everything she did was horrible. The dive she did from the top rope when they were like, oh, she's paying homage to Daddy, and it's like, first of all, let's not mention him. He murdered his wife and just died, or he murdered his girlfriend and just died, allegedly.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about him in a good light right now. And also, she dove from the top rope doing the Superfly splash, landed on her feet, and then fell onto Becky.
Yeah, she's very clunky, I think is the word. She's a very clunky worker.
At one point, I think she got drop kicked. Natalya drop kicked her from the apron, like a baseball slide drop kick, and she just slowly fell onto her butt. And I was like, I wonder if she has a medical condition that prevents her from bumping in the ring. And if she does, let's get her out of the ring. If she doesn't, let's get her out of the ring. No matter
right.
what, she shouldn't be in the ring. She's a danger to everyone around her. She did a Samoan drop on Carmella where a ladder was really close to her. And I was like, if you're going to drop this girl face first onto a ladder right now, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. And they kind of, when she debuted, they kind of build her as being this, basically what they're doing with Nia Jax now, almost, is how they build Tamina. But she never got a payoff. It was just they built her to be this monster, and then there was no title run, there was no big major feud. She just kind of fell into obscurity after being built up as this force. But I think it's obviously to your point that she's just not a good worker in the ring. Not
good at all. And I'm glad Carmella won again. I thought for a second they would put Becky over when they teased James Ellsworth doing it. I was like, oh, don't
put... a big fucking waste of time, though. If you're going to do a second match, then give us something else.
No, and that's not what I wanted. I don't think so at all, yeah.
That's not what I wanted, though. I still thought that Carmella should have won the match originally. I think that they made a mistake doing it over. You can't...
Doing it over, they lessened the, first match 1,000%.
Right, and there's no, now you kind of set the example of, if you guys bitch enough, we'll change what we're doing. And that's not how it should be. I mean, sometimes it works, like with Daniel Bryan. Like the fans bitched and they rioted until Daniel Bryan was in the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That made all the sense in the world. But with this, it's like, are we really complaining about the integrity of the finish of a wrestling match, a pro wrestling match? Like you can finish it however the fuck you want. It's about who won, which was Carmella, and I don't think
especially when it's a heel. Like,
right.
The whole fucking point was to get it heat,
and
it got heat.
Like, no one was like, Carmella should not have won this match. She's a bad worker. Someone else should have won this. No one had a problem with Carmella winning. It was how she won. And she's a heel. Who gives a fuck if she cheated to win? That's what heels do, you idiots.
Everyone's a fucking mark. Everyone is a fucking mark, Jared.
It's because they want, like, it's the first ever women's Money in the Bank match. It has to be a moment that they can replay on the network all the time as a great moment in wrestling history. It can't be this tacky, heel cheating finish. Like, of course it can. It's pro wrestling.
You know what they love too? They love calling things history making and historic before they happen.
Yeah.
People don't they don't realize history is called history after it happens. Mm-hmm. Things aren't historic before they happen. They called the Raw Gauntlet match, the first ever women's gauntlet match on Raw, history making. Eventually, we're going to get to these, like, we have the first ever Judy Bagwell on a pole match. It is historic on Monday Night Raw. And it's like, when you get to the intricacies, it's like, not every match is historic. Not every first time ever match is going to be historic.
Right. Like, do you think, like 3 months from now, even just a short window like that, 3 months from now, no one is going to remember that women's gauntlet match?
No, nobody. Absolutely nobody. Even, I think they'll probably do they're teasing a women's TLC I'm hearing about for Battleground. Mm-hmm. They'll call that historic. That almost lessens it in my mind. Like,
because now you're setting a bar.
Yeah.
Like, let it happen.
Just let it be about the actual feud. Let it be about these two women hate each other and they want to, fight it out in a TLC match. Don't make it like, these women are so great. Look, they could do what men do, too. Everyone fucking knows they could do what men do. That's not a thing anymore. Just let them do it.
Yeah, it's I don't want to say patronizing, but...
It is, though. It's a little patronizing.
Kind of, yeah, in a way, yeah.
Cream of the crop before we get into our interviews today. Stay tuned. Like I said, Rocky Romero and Joey Ryan, double guest, double booked. Cream of the crop this week, I couldn't think of a topic because we don't have a theme, really. We don't have a pay-per-view like Money in the Bank or whatever, so I texted you. I said, what do you got? And what was your topic this week, Jared?
I said that we should do our favorite pay-per-view of all time. Not the brand, our favorite pay-per-view show of all time.
Specific
like, pick a pay-per-view.
Show, yep.
Yes, pick the year, pick the card. I'm interested to hear yours because I feel like, I know that you've watched I'd never gone into WCW ever at any point. So I feel like you're a wild card here with what your pick might be.
I'm a wild card because of my, knowledge of the business, and I would go out and say I've probably seen 85 to 90% of WWE pay-per-views in history. Like, I've gone back and watched almost every pay-per-view they've ever done. But my answer is pretty predictable. In WrestleMania 30.
WrestleMania 30.
Yeah, I hate to be predictable about it, but that's
what's your second favorite?
That's the perfect show, in my opinion. Second favorite's tough. I'm a big WrestleMania 19 guy. 19 is one of my favorites because that was the first one I ever watched live, and it's just a fantastic show, top to bottom. WCW, I like Halloween Havoc 98 because there's some good, some bad, some classic shit WCW. Then you got the Eddie and Ray match, which is my favorite match in WCW history. But WrestleMania 30 in my mind is just the perfect wrestling show. It opens up with Daniel Bryan versus Triple H, which is, other than Brett and Owen, my favorite opener in WrestleMania history. My favorite wrestler of all time, obviously. The main event, not to spoil a future cream of the crop, is my favorite match of all time. And you got a squash match with The Shield, New Age Outlaws, and Kane, which people were like, they're wasting The Shield. Whatever, it's a squash match, like a little variety. I liked Bray Wyatt and John Cena a lot. I we have the streak ending, which is the most shocking moment in wrestling history. Kind of takes you on a roller coaster of emotions. The women's match was really good. It was a clusterfuck because they put them all together in one match, and they also put them right after the streak ending, but they got the crowd back into it before the main event. It's a really enjoyable show. Andre the Giant Battle Royal with Cesaro throwing Big Show over. I've probably seen that pay-per-view more than I've ever seen a pay-per-view. Money in the Bank 2011, I would also put probably in my top 3 of all time. Yep. I would go out on a limb and say that might be yours.
Which one did you say? Money in the Bank 2011?
Yeah.
That's not my favorite pay-per-view. That's again, I'm ruining the future, but that is my favorite match of all time. Is Punk and Cena Money in the Bank 2011.
Right,
my favorite pay-per-view.
We'll throw away cream of the crop favorite match. We'll come back to that in like a year when people have forgotten this.
Yeah, completely forget. My favorite pay-per-view of all time. Very fond memories of this pay-per-view, as I'm sure you as well, and you listening here at home. King of the Ring 98. My favorite pay-per-view of all time. This was the second pay-per-view I ever saw live. So you're lucky you didn't have to grow up like me, because back in the day, Bob, we used to have to, the way that it worked was I had one best friend who was a diehard wrestling fan with me. So what we would do is I would convince my parents to buy a pay-per-view one month. The next month, his parents would buy the pay-per-view.
Oh, come on. I did that, buddy.
And then the month after that, we would have to take off because they were like $40 fucking.
Dude, they were 60 when I was growing up. I could get the big
inflation.
4, and my friend would get most of them. So I'd have to go over his place.
So we would have to we would have to switch off, and then, but like you had the fucking internet. Like there's so many different ways to illegally stream it.
But when you're a kid, you don't know how to fucking do that. I think the first pay-per-view I illegally streamed was TLC like 2012. It was when John Cena versus Wade Barrett in a chairs match was the main event.
Yeah.
That was the first one I ever streamed.
So the other one was
super fun memories of that too, because I was like, fucking free pay-per-view. This is game-changing. I was like, what is this? I'm getting a pay-per-view for free.
This was before HD channels. So I want to say, I can't remember which one was the porn one and which one was the one that WWF pay-per-views were on. And there was like 62 maybe. So I used to have the ones that we couldn't buy. I used to have to watch through like scrambled. It was like static on my screen, and it would like the sound would cut in and out. And every like 30 seconds, you'd be able to like see through the static to watch a wrestling pay-per-view. And the other thing, my parents wouldn't let me stay up to watch all of Raw during school. So if I was in like, I don't know, 5th grade, my bedroom was down the hall from the kitchen. So, and my mom used to make me sleep with the door open because she could see the light from like the TV in my room, and she would like sneak down the hall to catch me watching wrestling. So I'd have to watch Raw on mute, and like I would shut it off like every like 30 seconds. Like I would sneak it in intervals of 5 seconds.
That is insane.
Yeah, I would have to do that.
Basically, we were watching Raw like a stop motion film, like
yes.
a claymation.
Yep, like that's how I had to watch Raw, because you were the biggest pussy in school the next day if you went to like recess and you couldn't talk about like how Raw.
Oh yeah, for sure. I had a system where I was allowed to watch the first 2 hours of Raw, and then like when it moved to 3 hours, I was allowed to watch the first 2 hours of it, and then I would DVR the final hour and watch it in the morning.
Yeah, guess what? I had to fucking VHS it, Bob. I had to fucking.
I have some wrestling shows on VHSs. Like the first few pay-per-views I ever watched are classic VHSs. I actually saved. This is fun. I got hit with Hurricane Sandy real bad. I got 6 feet of water in my basement, and one of the few things that I saved was a VHS tape called WWF's Most Unusual Matches, because that is my first like. I've been a wrestling fan for as long as I could remember, but it's kind of my first memory of wrestling. And I think the opening match of that VHS, which is the first ever ladder match in WWF, not Shawn and Razor, Shawn and Brett for the IC title.
Yep.
I think that's the first match I've ever seen. So when water is fucking filling my basement, I ran down there and I was like, I got to get WWF's Most Unusual Matches on VHS. My mom was like, what the fuck? Go get the table. And I'm like, fuck the table. Yeah. But I had to save that, and one day I want to like get that signed by like Shawn and Brett, because that's just like that's one of my favorite pieces of memorabilia I own.
Yeah, that's
Torn
definitely
apart VHS.
launching pad for you. But yeah, King of the Ring 98, that was the second one that I saw live, but it wasn't the second pay-per-view that I saw overall, because when we missed pay-per-views, we could go down to fucking Blockbuster and you could rent the pay-per-views on VHS.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to watch, the pay-per-views like a month later, even though we already knew the results. But it was like, yeah, I obviously want to see like what happened through the scrambled porn filter that I couldn't watch the pay-per-view on. But yeah, King of the Ring 98 was like, as a kid, 98, I was 8 years old, right? No, 9 years old. I was 9 years old in 1998, watching this live, being like, is this what they do all the time? Like, what the fuck? Like, we had no idea what was going on as kids, watching, Mankind go through the cell, off the cell, into thumbtacks. I was like, is this the type of shit that they do every night? Because if it is, I'm in. Like, I'm all the way in. And then obviously, as a Kane fan, my first pay-per-view ever was Bad Blood 97 when Kane debuted. So I was just a huge Kane fan from the jump. And to see him win the WWF title, albeit losing it 24 hours later and never winning it ever again, that was quite the night for me. But strolling into school the next day as the toughest motherfucker on the playground. So I was like, my guy just won the fucking WWF title last night.
That's huge.
Balls
that was me.
dragging.
That was me after WrestleMania 22. Rey Mysterio was my guy. So
Yeah.
when he won the title in that triple threat, I walked into school the next day. I was like, "Hey, motherfuckers, guess who just showed up? Me."
Like,
and I'm wearing my Rey Mysterio shirt.
Like, can you imagine growing up as a Kane fan? Like,
No.
I was the biggest fucking weirdo. Like, I thought I was Kane. Like, I thought, like, I didn't, like, I was stoic. I didn't speak. I was a fucking creep. I was a weirdo because I idolized Kane and I wanted to be this, like, mysterious dark figure as a fifth grader. Like, that doesn't bode well for making friends growing up.
Oh, that's crazy. To close it out before the interview, I just have a little stat for you here. Your
Ready.
favorite pay-per-view of all time, King of the Ring 1998, took place 12 days before I was born, and now you host a podcast with me.
That I didn't want to know that.
All right. Enjoy these interviews. We got Rocky Romero talking G1 in USA, New Japan. Definitely watch those shows. They'll be on TV if you get access. Jim Ross is doing commentary, which is very cool. I think it's his last show that he's doing before he's like full-time WWE again. And then we have Joey Ryan talking Glow on Netflix. Definitely check that out too. Enjoy. Okay, joining me now, somebody that I've been a fan of for a really long time, going back to PWG days, and is now on the card, both cards, New Japan and Long Beach, the G1 and USA special. Member of Roppongi Vice and member of Chaos, Rocky Romero. Rocky, what's going on?
Not too much. It's nice to be on.
Yeah, we're lucky to have you. You were somebody that, when we started the podcast, actually, every guest so far has been a friend of mine that I've met in the business or designed something for. You, I don't know too well. I've designed some stuff for you in the past. We met in person once at the Final Battle After Party this year. But
That's right.
I was really thinking like Rocky Romero would be a great guy to have on because you've been around the business for so long now in so many different facets of the business. And I don't feel like a lot of people realize that. They just maybe view you as, oh, yeah, Rocky from Roppongi Vice. And
Yeah.
I wanted to bring you on, especially this week, because this weekend in Long Beach, New Japan will have their first 2 shows in the United States of America. And you were pretty crucial to helping New Japan reach the American audience. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, what it means to you to have these shows in America? Is it a culmination of a lot of hard work from a lot of different people? Just why don't you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been involved with New Japan trying to expand into the U.S., I mean, probably since 2002, since I joined the LA Dojo, and I was part of that first class with Daniel Bryan, myself, TJ Perkins, Ricky Reyes, Bobby Kwan, Samoa Joe. And at that time, they didn't really have a vision for an expansion. It was kind of just like they wanted to open a gym, or I should say Antonio Inoki wanted to open up a gym, and he kind of wanted to expand, but New Japan was on the decline at the time, and they didn't really have the legs for it, for a true expansion. Plus, the world wasn't really ready for that, This was before, subscription services, like we have today, and and in it, like the whole, whatever you want to watch, basically, you have access to. It's like these niche kind of markets, This was kind of before that, so really, like people didn't, like there was a few people who knew what New Japan was. You're like tape trading, but this is, pre all that. So now here we are, in 2017, and, the last few years for New Japan have been great. We've been on a constant incline, and the business has grown so much, and the business has really grown internationally. And especially in the last year since, New Japan World. And also, I credit also, Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles and Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows leaving to the WWE. I mean, that brought in a whole new set of fans to New Japan as well, And then, but I think where it all started was 3 years ago when myself, Tiger Hattori, Delirious, and Kevin Kelly sat down, and we sat down in New York and we talked about ROH and New Japan working together. And I think that's kind of where things kind of started, and where I felt like I was able to, kind of help bring New Japan into the American light, and like people would, start to learn about the characters, and otherwise it's just like, oh, I heard of New Japan. Maybe I've seen like a couple clips here and there, but I'm not really sure what it is. But I think that ROH also helped to really expand that quickly,
Yeah, the War of the World shows, especially, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those have been very successful in the last 3 years. And you can see that they've just grown every year, There's more shows being added every year. And the relationship has been really, really solid, and it just continues to grow. So I think that's kind of where I started really helping out, in trying to help to expand the product. And then, then they said one day they came to me and they said that they wanted to do a show, a New Japan branded show on the West Coast. And I said, well, where are you thinking of running? And they said Los Angeles. And basically they told me, we know that that's your home and your backyard, and the area, and maybe you can help us kind of consult, or basically kind of consult to get this thing going, because obviously we have a full crew, a full office, with a bunch of office workers. We got like 100 office workers or whatever that work for the company.
Wow.
In Japan. So this was going to be a very small group of people that were going to kind of, get these shows going in the U.S. So, I mean, it's really been a pretty intimate group. Myself, George Carroll, Tezuka, who was the former president, another guy named Makoto Arimoto, who also works for New Japan and Bushiroad, Tiger Hattori. So that's kind of been, with the support of New Japan, but it's been, 4 or 5 people really kind of, getting this whole thing together, and also with the support and help of ROH, and they've been really great.
Yeah, it's very cool to see as a fan. I've been a fan of New Japan since Battle of the Super Juniors, or Best of the Super Juniors on 2011 was Prince Devitt, Fergal Devitt's first year winning it. I heard some buzz about him, and I decided, all right, I'm going to check this out, kind of venture out of my normal WWE routine, and fell in love with it. And to the point where I joke with my co-host on the show, I can't watch New Japan Pro Wrestling with English commentary because I'm so accustomed to the Japanese commentary. I don't understand a word they're saying, but I just absolutely love it. And as a fan, it's so cool that they're in the United States. They have such a big following. When you look at the Bullet Club shirts in Hot Topic, and Hot Topic is sold out of these shirts everywhere. It's incredible because, in my lifetime, I haven't really seen anyone be competition to WWE. And I'm not saying that New Japan right now is competition to WWE, but it's the closest thing to where we have now a mainstream alternative in both New Japan and Ring of Honor. And it's no longer this niche thing where it's tape trading and, some people have heard about it. You look at the Kenny Omega and Okada matches, both of them, those were mainstream news. Not only in the, niche wrestling world, everyone's talking about those matches. Everyone's talking about the Young Bucks. They, went their own way. Everyone's talking about your matches against them in Roppongi Vice. It is so cool to see, New Japan in America. And the cards, I'm a big fan of because it's kind of a blend. The United States Championship is being introduced, and we have a tournament for that. How do you feel about the actual cards put together for night 1 and night 2? I would assume that you're happy with them because they're pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think the cards are really, really strong. I'm excited about the U.S. Title tournament. I think that's really cool and unique. I mean, I know, I've seen a lot of people's comments because a lot of people tag me in things and stuff like that because they, maybe they heard through the grapevine that I was associated and kind of helping getting this thing going. But I could see people's thoughts about where the U.S. title might stand, since there's already 2 very important titles, and does New Japan have too many titles, And I feel like really I think it just depends on who becomes the champion. And whose shoulders that will fall on, because when the IC title was introduced, people said the same, and then Nakamura turned it into, something that was just as important as the IWGP Heavyweight title,
Absolutely.
So,
it main evented a Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, exactly. So whoever it falls onto, whoever ends up walking out of that tournament, I think that it's going to be a big responsibility, and I'm curious to see what happens.
Me too, because the competitors involved in that tournament, if you run down the list, there's just so much variety. You have Kenny Omega, Michael Elgin, Jay Lethal, Hangman Page, Juice, Zack Sabre, Ishii, and Naito. And there's just so much variety in there. You got veterans, you got newcomers, you got people that have been on the scene, in New Japan recently, people that have been in New Japan always. It's a very intriguing tournament.
Right. I mean, what if Zack Sabre wins? I mean, that's cool. How cool is that?
Yeah, Zacky 4 belts.
Yeah, I think it's pretty sick, and he'd be a guy who would be an awesome champion, somebody who's really hot all over the world right now. Like you said, somebody young like Juice, an up and comer, that would be a perfect title for him to kind of, jumpstart his career even more, springboard. Naito could easily take that and turn that into something huge,
Yeah, I'm sure everyone in New Japan's office is hoping that he does not win the championship because it is newly made, it's brand new, it's pretty.
Right.
Yeah.
But how controversial would that be, and it would be more something more for people to talk about, I mean, definitely I think the tournament is one of the most intriguing things this weekend,
Yeah.
Besides that, I mean, Cody versus Okada is pretty interesting.
Very interesting, especially now that Cody Rhodes, the free agent, is now the Ring of Honor World Champion.
That's nuts. And then that's never been seen before, a Ring of Honor World Champion, challenging for the IWGP Heavyweight title. So kind of a bunch of stuff is just that's going down is historic stuff,
Yeah, and just to wrap it up, you and Trent have had some classics with the Young Bucks in Japan. Now you're bringing that matchup to America. In Long Beach, night 2, you're going to have a match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. What do you have in store for us?
You know what? I don't know. It's kind of nerve-wracking in the fact that, we've wrestled each other so many times, and we've had, so many different types of matches. And it's well, what do we do now? What happens now? What kind of match will it be, on Sunday?
It's very interesting that you say that, because in watching all of your matches, each one is, and I'm not just saying this, it's genuinely unique. Like every match, especially
Right.
the one at Dominion. Like I've never seen you guys
Right.
have a match even close to that. So it's interesting that you
Right.
say it's kind of a struggle to keep things fresh when that's never been seen to the watcher.
Right, right, and you know, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be with the Young Bucks, you know, because I mean, they are really the best tag team in the world, you know, and they always perform, you know, at a very high level, and you know, you don't really know what you're getting out of them. They can do anything, you know. I know a lot of people, for some reason, kind of label them as, you know, kind of one-trick ponies, but I mean, really, if you look at what they're doing and how they've exploded, you know, on the scene the last couple of years, I mean, they can do basically anything, any kind of style with anybody, and you know, and really get, you know, top-notch results out of the match. You know what I'm saying? And it's a testament to how hard they work. They're one of the, you know, the hardest working people in professional wrestling today. No matter, you know, and that's even compared to the guys in WWE.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I know it firsthand.
yeah, I
I've
don't
done a
know.
lot of their tights. I'm the designer of, you know, the classic Melter tights that they have.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So having you on the podcast, now I have some internal struggles of who I'm rooting for. Rocky was on the podcast before the Young Bucks, and I
Right?
probably
Yeah,
did the
right.
Young Bucks gear for this show. So it's like, who do I root for? Would you
Yeah,
say
well,
that they're your favorite tag team that you've ever worked with?
definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. Me, myself and Trent were talking about recently. One night we were talking to Jado about favorite opponents. You know, it started out with like dream opponents and it turned into like favorite opponents. And you know, Trent and I both said that, you know, the Young Bucks are at the top of the list without a doubt.
Yeah, it really shines through on your matches. As a fan, I'm just super excited to see what you guys have in store for us next. Make sure you check out New Japan G1 Special in the USA. It's going to be on Axis Friday and Saturday, correct?
Yeah. So Friday night is Dominion. That's going down, I believe. Dominion on Friday night. I'm not sure what matches are playing, and then Saturday night will be live. 5 p.m. Pacific, I believe, 8 p.m. Eastern, and that's will be live on Axis. And then Sunday will be 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Live on New Japan World. That's njpwworld.com.
And I cannot recommend New Japan World enough. You can check out that Japanese commentary that I'm always raving about. You can check out the English commentary if you're just getting into it. Rocky, thanks for joining us. Can't wait for the shows.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. We'll see you.
Thank you, man. Joining me now is the King of Dong Style, now has a new nickname under Mr. Monopoly, Joey Ryan, featured in Netflix's Glow. Joey, what's going on?
Not too much, just hanging out.
You've had a big week, huh, with the debut of Netflix's newest, most popular show?
Yeah, it's getting a lot of good reviews and a lot of talk and a lot of, you know, I've noticed. I mean, I'm only in it really for a cameo, but I've been getting nonstop tweets about it for 3 days now. So
yeah,
it's
my
been
Twitter, you know, from following just so many wrestling fans and other wrestlers on the independents and major promotions, so many of them are tweeting you and your clip. The little cameo is Mr. Monopoly. It's incredible because it's just so 80s wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, it worked out well. They wrote, I mean, what they wanted for the scene, I think we accomplished. So, you know, and I think that's why the response has been so positive.
Yeah, how did that come about? Your appearance on Glow?
Well, so the writers of Glow have been to a few Lucha Vavoom shows in downtown LA, and they know me, know my wife from there too, like as characters. They don't know us personally; they know us as characters. So when they were developing the show for Glow, they hit us up. They found us online and hit us up and asked if we wouldn't mind coming down and like just talking to them about wrestling, because they really didn't know like the inner workings of wrestling, but they wanted to do the show. So we came down. We spent about an hour with them in their office, giving them the ins and outs of a quick ins and outs, obviously, of wrestling. And you know, that was it. And then you know, when they were shooting, they hit us back up, and I guess, and I don't know if it's because they liked us from Lucha Vavoom or if they wanted to like thank us for helping them out when they were first getting going. But for whatever reason, they gave me and my wife a spot on that episode where I played Mr. Monopoly, and my wife Laura played Crystal on the show.
Yeah, it's really admirable that they would reach out and really try to learn the business, because we've seen the stories come up over the years of just shows will try, all right, there's a wrestling show, they'll film the pilot, and then it never really pans out. And a lot of the complaints are like, yeah, wrestling fans really wouldn't like the show because it really just didn't understand the business. And the winner of matches he was winning legitimately, and wrestling fans would not be happy with that. Glow seemingly is just a universal, we love this. And it pays really good homage to the original Glow back, in the 80s. And it's coming at a very good time where women's wrestling is in the forefront. And you have been very much pushing for women's wrestling at the forefront almost your entire career, correct?
Yeah. I think they have for a long time they didn't really get the credit they deserved. A lot of them, because of what was, what happens on top of the industry trickles down to the rest of the industry. So what you're seeing on television reflects how the rest of the industry or that rest of the fans view women's wrestling in the industry. And I think a lot of them, especially nowadays, work really hard, and they come up they grew up admiring some of the best wrestlers in the world and trying to pattern their careers off of that and training hard to be like the best wrestlers in the world. And I think finally, in recent years, they've been getting the credit they deserve.
Yeah, and you've been tag teaming with Candice LeRae for a long time, and the world's cutest tag team. One of my favorite acts in the entire business is you guys. And actually, your Guerrilla Warfare match against the Bucks, I would go out on a limb and say it's my favorite independent wrestling match there is. That was like, when it happened, there were just the murmurs, because PWG obviously isn't live, that this match was something special. And I remember just waiting for that DVD to come in, and it came like a Sunday morning or something, or Saturday morning, popping it in, watching the whole show. And that match was amazing and sparked the Candice LeRae is tougher than you that you really pushed for. And I felt like that match was so important in showing that, listen, these girls aren't fucking around anymore. Like, this is how the business is. This is where the business is going, as far as these women can stand toe to toe with men. And you've been pushing a lot for intergender matches, which that was. And I really enjoy your explanation of why intergender matches are acceptable in wrestling. When you refer to some movies like Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and you say, Rey and Kylo Ren fought, we're kind of doing the same thing. Do you want to expand upon that a little bit? Because there are a lot of naysayers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I look at wrestling as entertainment, as scripted fights, which is what they are. So to me, it's the same as watching a TV show or a movie, only we're doing it live in one take. And there's plenty of female heroes. There's a lot of intergender scripted fighting going on in Wonder Woman, in Star Wars, and Avengers, comic book movies. These women are superheroes, and I feel like professional wrestlers, we portray larger than life superheroes, and we all have backstories that we train for this, or who's to say that Candice LeRae doesn't specifically train for intergender wrestling, and that's why she's a specialist at it, and that's why she can hold her own against male competitors. So I feel like to limit yourself on gender-specific wrestling is to limit your own imagination, because you can believe what you want to believe as far as your imagination goes.
Yeah, I'm a proponent of it, especially when it's done right. I think PWG, especially with Candice, has done right so many times. There are some promotions here and there that will do intergender matches where it doesn't feel like it's appropriate, but I think PWG's done such a good job with it, and I think all of your matches, intergender-wise, have done a good job with it. Do you have a favorite opponent when it comes to wrestling intergender?
Oh, geez. Not necessarily a favorite opponent. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to get some matches with some females who understand the intricacies of intergender wrestling. Mia Yim, Evilise, Shayna Baszler. A lot of them, they get that it's a different animal, and they can't go out about it as the same as they would a regular match. But because we're telling the story here, and people see that there's even though we're treating the event or the fight as equal, people obviously see that there's differences between men and women, physical, athletically, whatever it is. So you can't ignore them. You can't insult the audience's intelligence by just pretending that it doesn't exist. You have to play them up, and by playing them up, you can begin to lead your audience on a story that they can follow and they can believe in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Another really fun thing that you've done recently is you are the holder of, or not anymore, but the DDT Ironman Heavy Metalweight Championship. I'm looking at your Wikipedia page right now. It says that you've held this title 42 times. Is that the correct number? Do you know?
If it's on Wikipedia, then it's probably true, because they're pretty. Who's ever keeping track of it on Wikipedia is pretty on top of that.
Yeah. So you're the 42-time heavy metalweight champion in DDT, and this is something that fans loved during the Attitude Era was the Hardcore 24/7 Championship, where you can win anytime, any place. A referee will always be there. That's kind of what this title has become. And I think it works so much better on the independent scene than it ever did with WWE, because you're defending it everywhere. And we really saw this WrestleMania weekend this year, where the title was just changing hands. Every show you went to at WrestleCon, you would see this title show up at some point during the show. It was really fun. How much of that was mapped out WrestleMania weekend beforehand? Like, oh, this would be fun, this would be fun. Or was it just a lot of spur-of-the-moment stuff?
Well, it was that title's been around since WWE had their hardcore title, and when WWE got rid of their hardcore title, this promotion just kept it going. So this title is 17 years old. It's had 1,200 champions, more than 1,200 champions at this point. And so I had a run with it late last year, the middle of last year, and I went around a lot of independents, and I had a go with it, and I had a lot of different people win it and lose it, and just had a lot of fun with it. And then and then I took it back to Japan, and I lost it, and they kept it in Japan for a while. And then my last trip in March, High Spots had an idea to do a Battle Royal for it on WrestleMania weekend. So so I was able to, so they put it on me again, so I could take it to WrestleMania weekend. And then since I had it on WrestleMania weekend anyways, I just figured I might as well do what I could with it. So I really didn't really map too much of it out. I just brought it with me everywhere and figured out who wanted to play and who didn't want to play and who wanted to have some fun. And it came out well. I mean, people liked following it from show to show.
Yeah, it's a really fun concept, and you keep things fresh on your Twitter, like your whole social media game. I think I think you would agree, like, is helping make you as relevant as you are. Is how relevant you are on Twitter, and that's a big part of the business in everything. But you were able to post the videos of every title change, and it's just so much fun to follow along. You get a notification on your phone, there's been a title change, and you just know it right away. And that's like, it's just fun, and the intergender matches, all of it, your whole gimmick that you run, the Joey Ryan character, it's just a lot of fun. And I wanted to have you on the show to talk about that just a little bit. What we talked about today, I feel like you're helping bringing the fun back in wrestling.
I mean, I appreciate that. I definitely wouldn't want to have less fun doing it. You know what I mean? I'm very blessed to to play fight in my underwear for a living, for lack of better terms. But we're professional make-believers, and again, I think that limiting one's imagination is harmful to not only wrestling but to one's own career. So I wouldn't want to become a bitter guy who isn't having fun. So I just try to be as creative as possible, and I let whatever creative juices I have flow through my professional wrestling character.
Yeah, it definitely shines through. We want to thank Joey for joining us on the show today. Joey, where can we catch you on Twitter? Plug any shows coming up? I'm
on Twitter. I'm at Joey Ryan Online. I always plug all my shows on there. I got Instagram. It's at Joey Ryan. I'm on Facebook as well, and I'm, like you said, I'm pretty social media active. And I'm plugging all my appearances on there. I also have a Pro Wrestling Tees store, which is prowrestlingtees.com/Joey Ryan. if you want to support. I appreciate everyone's support. So
You could probably
yeah, I
find
mean,
some vintage Robbie Fox designs on there too,
maybe
from back in the day.
There's bound to be one of them at least. But yeah, no, I support, and I you know, I'm pretty active on social media, and I like interacting with fans. So please come find me and talk to me. Say hello.
All right, Joey. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so we want to thank Joey and Rocky for coming on the podcast with us today. Hope you enjoyed both of those interviews as well. Great job, Octagon Bob, with the interviews.
Thank you.
I subbed out for this one, but you know what? I'll be back for the next one, and hopefully the next one's a big one.
Hopefully the next one's a big one.
The next one is like
we have
just
a few things cooking, and
like the not just like a big one. Like it might be like a big one.
Might be a big one.
Yeah, that's called a big league tease right there.
That's a tease for you,
yeah,
folks.
It's a big one. It's one of those ones where do you have like a list of interviews, like say in your head, don't give me them. Your top 5
I have a
guests
list in
of
my
all
head.
time. Would you say that the person that I'm thinking of right now is in your top 5 of all time?
I'd say top 10.
Top 10.
I would say top 10, yeah.
All right, so if, say this goes, say they let us do this for 100 episodes. He's in your top 10.
He's in my top 10. So I mean, we're teasing big here. It'd be
This is a big
crazy
tease.
if we came out with like an indie wrestler nobody's ever heard of. But yeah, I mean, we're teasing a big one. We're working on a few things. We have a few guests in the works. The guest we're talking about, I would describe him as a big one.
Yeah, he's definitely that's one of the big ones.
All right. Tune in next week. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at From the Top. Rate and review this show on iTunes, please. That is the most important thing you can do for this show. Rate us, review us on iTunes. Get us climbing up the charts. Like, climb those charts, kid. Make yourself famous. This is From the Top Rope. And